All right, coaches, welcome back to my YouTube channel. You know, I made the channel look a lot better with Jamey, and I've added another very pretty young lady to our YouTube here to make it look even better. I've also brought in one of my friends through social media. You know, one of the cool things about our world and social media and YouTube and all that stuff is you get to meet people that probably you never would have met. And Jamey and I were blessed to have been on the podcast of Chris and Corinne, and they've done such a good job. We wanted to kind of bring them on to let them wrap up talking about coaches and wives and coaches and families. And I think Chris is a guy that really epitomizes that. He talks a ton about it and lives it. And I think so we wanted to have them on. And Jamey's, you know, this is not her cup of tea, speaking a bunch. So we wanted to bring some people on to do this as well. But before we kind of get really going, Chris, why don't you guys talk a little bit about, or either one of y'all talk about your podcast, and for people that maybe don't know anything about it, what's kind of the most important parts?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Kenny and Jamey, great to see you guys again, and it's good to be on with you guys. Always talking football and life and everything. So thanks for allowing us to come on here. And yeah, so our podcast, the Friday Night Life podcast, we started it back in May. Was a passion project of Corinne's. She had always wanted to connect with coaches' wives along this journey. I've been a head football coach for 15 years, coaching for 26, and she just always had this desire and this passion to connect with other coaches' wives. And so we just got to talking, and she was kind of telling me her desires and her passions. And then it wasn't until last January, we just decided, well, why not? Let's go talk to some other couples. Let's go have some conversations with some other people and take this nationally. And so we jumped into a podcast class, kind of learned the ins and outs of the whole thing, and then just dove right in May and started recording, and it's just gone from there. So we just finished our first calendar year of podcasts. We got about 23 episodes in, and just loving it.
Cool. And where's some, like, I wouldn't know where to go look it up. Jamey's listening to probably all of them, but where would somebody go to listen to you guys?
We're on most of the mainstream podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Spotify,
Pandora, I think, iHeartRadio.
I think iHeartRadio. Yeah. So just at the Friday Night Life, you just kind of type that in your search bar, and up comes our podcast.
That's pretty cool.
Too, you can also just go to our website, www.thefridaynightlife.com, and each post that I post for each of the interviews, at the bottom is a way. I attach the MP3, so you can actually just listen to it through our website if you don't belong to any podcasting platform. So
good.
Yeah. Well, and this week's been different for me, you know, because usually I'm on here on a whiteboard talking football, but I really felt what you guys are doing and what we wanted to try to highlight was way more important, you know, because, unfortunately, I think a lot of times as coaches, we spend a lot of money to figure out X's and O's and to figure out that type of stuff, but we don't spend any money or really direct traffic on spending time with our family. So Jamey's kind of this week and providing a lot. As you can tell, I'm the talker of the two.
Yep.
You know, the talker, it kind of worked out well for us, but so she's been kind of talking about that, but you guys are unique, and we're kind of unique too in the fact that, you know, not only do we live together and together, we spent the whole week talking about her being involved in my program, but I also have a side business, you know, and she pretty much is the organizer and the one that runs that, you know, and makes me look better. Then we let her talk a little bit about some of the things she does with that. And then I know y'all work together with the podcast, and Jamey's worked at the same school with me. And so, you know, it brings really great opportunities for your wife to be so involved, but it also can, you know, you got to make sure that you create challenges sometimes when you're with each other all the time. I know y'all are still in California, so you're still literally locked in pretty much.
Yes, we are.
Locked in, locked down, locked out.
So we'll let Jamey talk a little bit about kind of some of the things that she's done on the business side with me, and then maybe ask you guys some questions about some things y'all are doing too. So I'll be quiet and let the
Absolutely.
You know, he mentioned us working together in the past. We've even coached together. We coached track together for a while, and that had its challenges because technically I was the head girls and he was the head boys, but just the way it worked out better, he kind of handled certain responsibilities and I handled others, and we made it work. But that had its challenges. We mentioned working together at the school. That was fun. But since we've moved to this most recent, I stayed home to focus on my sports graphics. And then his business has really, you know, the stuff that he started during quarantine really has just taken off, and his books and promoting and all that. And so really I have found myself, along with my sports graphics, really just keeping his stuff going and getting out there, and, you know, more book covers because he keeps writing them, and then editing and formatting, and then processing really just takes a couple days because we're very blessed that people want to read and learn about the content. And
Fantastic.
So just the processing and the day-to-day operations and the tax and just the boring stuff that
I don't want to do.
It's not fun. And so the paperwork and just keeping it organized. He's very organized, but yet you do have to kind of keep track of it and put it into spreadsheets, and, you know, so that's what I've been doing. I feel like I'm excited because I get to be more flexible for our kids, because luckily they are back into school. Mm-hmm. They just transitioned to a Flex Friday. So they're home on Fridays. And luckily I was able to stay home with them too, because he has to still go in.
Yeah, I'm not flexible.
He's not Flex Friday. So anyway, it's just that we knew this year was going to be an odd year anyway, but it's been good to be able to help him how he needs it. But, and it's good. We have a lot to talk about, but I'm hoping this weekend we're going away, and I'm hoping we can kind of shut it down and not talk a little bit, just kind of get back to why we like each other.
Well, that's a good segue kind of to you guys. You know, you work together, so obviously you've got to kind of talk through, but how do you separate that from, all right, now we want to go to a movie, quit talking about the podcast, or quit talking about whatever it is. How do you guys kind of handle that stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I think we actually have to be a little bit more intentional to talk more about the podcast. Because I think sometimes, you know, especially Chris, like his thing is to kind of zone out, watch a game or watch a movie or something. For me, I'm busy, you know, I like to clean or organize or just be busy about the house. So, the way I process a lot of thoughts and things that goes into Friday Night Life is like, I'll get on the elliptical and after I just have some time to think, and then I'll come in and I'm like, hey, it's just like all these ideas come spewing out. Hey, by the way, you should do this, you should do that. And he's like, okay, we need to talk about it. So, but we do. I mean, that's kind of how we do kind of process our thoughts, and we talk through things. I mean, that's kind of how we.
Absolutely. And then we sit and actually, you know, we kind of tag team the editing part. So we both like to go back when we record an episode, like with you all. We'll go back and we'll sit and we'll listen to it again and take a couple days and just kind of make sure, you know, the content is relevant and it makes our guests come off well. So we'll listen to it and just kind of, hey, I like that. Hey, we should cut that, or no, we should edit that. And kind of back and forth with each other. And then she handles the blog part. So the website, the website and the blog and everything, that's Corinne. She does a great job of just organizing that, getting the pictures from our guests. And then I kind of help out on the front end of it before the interview. We'll do the questions together too. And we'll come up with the questions, try to send that to our guests. So we both kind of have our own little duties within inside the podcast. And when it all comes out, we just, tag team it.
Which is kind of cool because I'm not very techie, and actually Chris is more techie when it comes to the equipment portion of our podcast. So all the microphones and the hooking up and everything, I'm like, I still don't know how to do any of that. But what's interesting is that I used to scrapbook back in the day in like the early 2000s. And so it was interesting that it kind of prepared me for even just some of the work that we do through Friday Night Live, just getting things up on it. Because at one point I did have a blog. And so I used to take pictures, and I was a little bit into photography and And so using the digital, kind of like what you do, Jamey, a little bit of the digital. I just do Adobe Photoshop Elements. So it's like the elementary. It's not like what you do, but it's interesting how the Lord kind of placed things in our path. And for me, to just kind of give me a little bit of a foundation so that when we dived into this, I kind of knew my way around some of just the media stuff and how to get that up on our blog. And so, yeah, you just see our little strengths kind of been highlighted. And I think that's what's been such a blessing for us, is that, you know, for a time, and again, this was such a huge thing for us to do together. But I think it was just neat because we see what our strengths are and how they're highlighted through this ministry of ours. So I kind of see Chris shine in certain ways that I probably would have never seen had we not been working together on this, even just through football, his coaching and just the contacts that he has, like Kenny through you, he just meets these people and he's like, oh yeah, I know this guy. I'm like, oh, wow. And he's making all these connections that I didn't really know because it wasn't part of my world. But now we're kind of, you know, kind of meshing and melding our worlds together. And then he's seeing what I've done. He's like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? I'm like, well, that was kind of what I did back in the day when I scrapbooked and digital scrapbooked. And so he's like, wow. And so it's been really fun to kind of see those things work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what you guys do is awesome. And Jamey's probably heard every single one of yours, especially the ones she said you guys do a lot with the wives, which is neat. And so to me, what I've been trying to do this week has been, you know, I'm hoping younger coaches are watching this, or older is fine, doesn't matter. But you hear so much about the coaching side, but you don't hear about like the ugly part sometimes where the marriages don't do some of the things you're talking about. And I wasn't great at it early either. You know, Jamey and I, you know, Dave Ramsey has a saying he used a lot. Like we hung on, but sometimes it was to get a better grip. You know, just kind of sometimes it wasn't really pretty. You know, and I think coaches don't always share that with them. But I know we went through some time where it felt like two different worlds.
Yes.
So, what are some things you might encourage maybe a younger coach who's watching this? I'm thinking that 25-year-old that has the newborn at home, you know, and the wife working and he's working and they're coming home and you know, what are some things that you guys might tell those couples, hey, it does get better. Here's some things that maybe can help.
Yeah, I think one of the things I needed to do a lot better, if I could go back and talk to my 25-year-old self, I would definitely tell that coach, you got to let her in. You have to make her a part of your world. Meaning, I did a very poor job, Kenny and Jamey, early on, just making it my world. Football was my life, and that was me on the field doing my thing. And she was at home, the dutiful wife, taking care of the house, or the kids. When it came time, we had kids. And I didn't do a very good job at all of just kind of bringing her along with me and making her part of my world, by talking with her more, sharing with her more things. You know, us men, you know, we compartmentalize everything, right, Kenny? We just, whatever's going on, good, bad, and different, we kind of lock it in. And how was your day? That was fine. And that was the conversation, right? And you know, she was so good about trying to ask me questions. Well, what happened here? What happened there? And I wasn't very good at communicating all of it, you know, good, bad, or the ugly. And so by doing that, I think I kind of I set up that wall and didn't let her in. And it wasn't until just recently where it was, you know, okay, you know, this is a team sport, you know, this head coaching gig. And so that's what I would tell the younger coaches watching this. Just make sure the ones that are married, the ones that have kids, make sure you have your priorities balanced, to make sure it's family over football, and really let your family in and make them to be a huge part of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jamey, anything you can think of?
I would agree with that. One thing, I'm sure a lot of the coaches' wives know Kayla Fox, and one of her big things that she says a lot is give grace. And I know something that I did not do early on, and I may not do it as well now. I think I've gotten better too, but early on, I just didn't understand. And I just was like, I'm doing this all by myself, and you never even acknowledge. And you know, when your kids are younger, that is harder. It's just a different part of life, different phase, but give grace, I would say, to just understand that you need grace as well, and give him the grace that you're wanting, and just kind of be understanding even when you don't want to be.
Oh, that's so good. And I just to piggyback off of what you're saying, because it's so true. We do as wives, we have to have grace. We have to be flexible to the schedule and the demands that are on our coach. But one of the things that plays into that is the communication. When you're communicating with each other, and which is something that we didn't learn early on, but when our husbands allow us to come into that world, then there's that communication. So then we know where our hearts are, right? In those situations and in those things. And when you know where each other's hearts are, then the grace comes naturally, right? The flexibility comes naturally, because you're hearing his heart. You're saying, you know, I got to do this. There's this coach that needs to talk, or we've got these players that we've got this situation going on. So there's not that we need to have an excuse as wives, right? We need to be gracious. Doesn't, you know, whether or not the situation, but I feel like when there's that communication, then you know where each other's hearts are and our mindsets are at. And then it just works together in a more just organically, you know, just like, oh, okay, well, I'll see you at 9 o'clock rather than 7 o'clock or whatever. And yeah, I think we're starting to see that more as we communicate. We just kind of see that.
And even coming off the field, you know, as far as that, exactly what she's saying, I would come home from a bad day, bad week, something happened at school or on the field or something. I'm dealing with something that's really heavy on me. And when I came home, I'd bring it in the house with me. You know, it's just one of those, you know, things. And that wasn't the problem. The problem was I wouldn't talk to her about it. And I wouldn't let her in that and vet it out myself. And I would hold it in. So my attitude and even my facial expressions, my body language, it was almost against Corinne. You know what I mean? And it wasn't her. It was something I was dealing with at work, but because of my wall and didn't want to let her in, it was almost like she would take it personally because I was frustrated about something else that wasn't even about her, but I would end up taking it out on her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's basically marriage 101 right there.
Yeah.
No, you know, I'm going to hit you guys with one last question. I really appreciate you guys' time, but you guys have done, so other than the obvious favorite guests you guys have had, what has been a pearl of wisdom that was shared with you guys from somebody that's come on your show, and maybe in episodes people can go back and watch that, hey, you know, if you're wanting to really dig into marriage stuff, this was really a great one, and then people can go find that if they want to go find it.
Man, Penny, that's a $1 million question.
Yeah, there was quite
so much. It really was.
Well, one of the things that I loved, and actually, you kind of mentioned this in our podcast when we interviewed you guys, but a few of the couples had mentioned that one of the things we have to realize is our strengths and our gifts in each other. And sometimes our marriage, especially in a coaching family, it doesn't always look normal. And there are times where the woman has to kind of step up and maybe perhaps do something that would have, you originally think it would be a male's job. You know, you have to shift that mindset and just know that. I think it was Jillian and Jillian and Kurt Hines, where she says, you know, I mow the lawn, I do the finances, like, you know, so, and I liked that. It was like, I think and that was part of our issue in marriage. It was that I just had a definition of this is what the husband needs to do, and this is what the wife needs to do. And in our line of work, sometimes the coach just doesn't have time to do all that stuff. And as a wife, I have to be willing to dive into some of those other things that I didn't necessarily think I was supposed to do. And you just kind of have to change that mindset. I liked that Jillian had said, I think you guys had said that too. I remember, Jamey, you had said something about, you know, just how you had to kind of step in and take on some of those things. And I loved that. I loved that we just as couples have to work together as a team and do whatever is necessary to make our family and our home work. And so I like that. Yeah.
We've often joked about, because, you know, most coaching couples are competitive. and we are competitive to a fault. And a lot of our arguments would be like, we have to win. And we would have to step back and say, we're on the same team. Why are we arguing about this? Yeah. So I think, communicating, getting on the same page, realizing you can work together and be a really amazing team. You don't have to be separate teammates.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
A little trivia here too. She probably didn't mention the podcast, but like if something has to be fixed around the house, it is not me who does it because I'm horrible. But Jamey's done plumbing and that stuff. So
I had to fix every single toilet in this house when we moved in. 3 of them were broken, and I was like, "This is ridiculous." But I
didn't do any of that. I'm terrible at that stuff. So like if someone broke the field house, I'd have to bring her up to do that. Anyway, I think be different. That's awesome. I had one of the younger coaches that wasn't on a podcast or anything, but asked me about, what's the secret of marriage? And I said, man, think about 4th and 1. If you have the football and your whole team's counting on you, you are not going to quit. And I said, that's the secret of marriage. Is There's going to be a whole lot of stuff you don't want to deal with, but don't quit. That's the secret. That's it. That's it. And I think coaches kind of go there because you guys mentioned there's so many, and I'm sure you've heard it, so many different people made it, and then some people that should have made it didn't make it. To me, anyone listening to this, Jamey and I are not perfect, and there's a lot of times we question whether we or we're supposed to be together, but we are here and we're not going to quit. And I think that's kind of the secret of marriage, is that's what we're going to do. And I think you've seen so many different people that are in there. Anyway, absolutely. I appreciate you guys coming on again. Before we go, because I want to make sure people go, if you're a coach watching this, which I think so far my audience is like 99% male, so I'm hoping to grow my female audience on this YouTube station with something like this. But if not, direct your wife here. You guys podcast, and it is Friday Night Life, the Friday Night Life, and they can find it on any normal platform. And it's free. Go on there, guys, and listen. And I know they've had some really good guests. I know Jamey has gotten a lot of kind of pearls of wisdom from it. And
really, y'all have some merch out. I love your shirts. I love your mug and your shirts, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate having you guys on, and hopefully we can connect again. Jamey's got some ideas about doing like a couples game night virtually, so we may reach out to you guys.
Oh, yes.
Love that.
Kind of help us out with that and make that work. And then, I've got dreams when COVID goes away of doing a coaches couples something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we definitely want
let us know. Absolutely. Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and shut the recording down, guys. Again, if you want to reach out to them, and you all are on Twitter too, is that right? Where's your Twitter handle?
Yes. At TFNL Podcast on Twitter. And I have my own Twitter at Coach Stevens 94. And then we're on Instagram as well. I think that's the Friday Night Life, right?
Yeah,
at the Friday Night Life on Instagram.
Okay.
And Facebook, the Friday Night Life.
And Facebook. Yep.
Good. So any flavor y'all want to go to, and guys, their stuff is good. And I tell you what, it's that, you may get fired from a job. If you haven't yet, you will. It's going to happen. If you coach. You hope you don't get fired from your family. So that's way more.
That's right.
So go listen to their stuff. So